Você me avisa?
Aviso.
It's funny to talk to the screen.
Estamos online agora.
Já?
Já.
Posso começar?
Exato.
So, boa noite, pessoal. Good evening, everyone. We are here with the composer and conductor, David Dzubay, and I will quickly read his bio in Portuguese, so the public can also know his ways in our language, okay? So, o professor David Dzubay é o chefe do departamento de composição e diretor do New Music Ensemble na Universidade de Indiana, em Bloomington, nos Estados Unidos. Como regente, ele atuou em festivais como Tanglewood, Aspen, June em Buffalo, e também dirigiu o Pittsburgh New Music Ensemble, Greater Dallas Youth Symphony Orchestra, Music from China, o Voice of Change, Ensemble de Minnesota Orchestra, entre outros. Como compositor, ele atuou como consultor da Minnesota Orchestra e como compositor residente da Green Bay Symphony Orchestra. Recebeu várias premiações e encomendas, entre elas Meet the Composer, Chamber Music of America, National Endowment for the Arts, Prêmio Sackler de 2015, 2017, também encomenda da From Music Foundation 2015. As suas obras têm sido executadas por orquestras, conjuntos e solistas dos Estados Unidos, Europa, Canadá, México, Ásia. São publicadas pela Pro Nova Music e registradas pelos selos Sony, Bridge, Centaur, Innova, Naxos, Crystal, Clavier, Gia, First Edition e Indiana University. Desde 2011, o Dzubay atua todo o verão como professor de composição no Brevard Music Center. So back to English now, we can start. I'm just going to introduce for some of the people who are watching in English as well. Professor David Dzubay is the chair of the composition department and the conductor of the IU New Music Ensemble at Indiana University, Jacobs School of Music. He is very active composer. His works are played in the US, in Canada, in Europe, in Asia, Mexico, etc. As a conductor, besides working as a guest conductor, he's also the director of the IU New Music Ensemble since 1992. We had a chance of seeing so many concerts, and I was a big fan of the ensemble while I studied at IU. So just so you know a little bit about the ensemble, the IU New Music Ensemble is a group of 18 virtuoso instrumentalists which performs a broad spectrum of contemporary music, focusing on works from the recent past, world premieres with the presence of the composer, and also significant ensemble works from the 20th century. It was a great ensemble. It was packed. The concerts were really, really packed. It was it was very different from Brazil. So that's why I guess David is like here just to give this testimony to us, like that new music is something very special in a few places or many places outside here maybe. So you're not in Brevard right now, so I guess we are very lucky to have you here with us. So let's start with a little bit of a kind of a therapy. So how do you define yourself? Who speaks the loudest, the composer, the conductor, or the professor?
Well, first, let me just thank you for inviting me to this discussion. And I look forward to speaking with you and hearing more about your orchestra and things in Brazil as well. But, you know, that's changed at different periods of my life. When I began in music, I was very much a trumpet player. And even then, I was more of a jazz player, really, than a classical player. But in high school, played in the Portland Youth Philharmonic and was introduced to the music of Stravinsky and all of this, so that piqued my interest. And then in college, it was still trumpet at the beginning, but then I started composing more and more, and gradually that took over. And then while the conducting really came out of my composing, where I would conduct my pieces, you know, I'd get my friends together and play through a piece, maybe perform it on a recital. And then I would start having opportunities to conduct compositions by my fellow students, and did more and more of that. So it kind of veered from trumpet to composing to conducting, and of course now I'm mainly a composer and conductor. I would say I'm more in the professional realm. I'm more of a composer. That's where I have more professional activity, and certainly at school, a lot of what I do is running the New Music Ensemble and teaching composition. But really, I spend more time working on the New Music Ensemble, choosing repertoire and planning rehearsals, bringing in guest composers, and all of this. It really takes a lot of work. So I don't know. I don't mean to be not answering your question. At the core, I probably think of myself as mainly a composer, and then a composer who conducts. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Wow. Well, you ended up answering most of my questions in the first session of our interview. No, but that's great. Now I have to jump to some of them. Well, so my next question actually is, what's your most important value as a musician? As educational, as artistic, as I don't know.
That's a very interesting question, and I don't think of it in those terms so much. I mean, I'm in this balancing act, like I think a lot of composers, where you're teaching and you're spending time in academia, and that is incredibly rewarding. You know, working with students and helping them discover new repertoire and new techniques and new abilities and all of this. That's very rewarding. But my own personal expression as a composer is another part of that needs to be in balance. When I'm not composing something and feeling good about what I'm working on, it's hard for me to feel good about anything else. So I like to try to have a balance between my different activities. And with the ensemble, you know, trying to get this group to perform at the highest possible level, and pretty much a professional level, trying to instill the values of, you know, taking this music seriously and approaching it the same way you approach any repertoire that you're going to present to the public in a convincing way. You know, it shouldn't be at all a duty or a chore to, you know, do some music of our time, but it should be a joy, and, you know, you should be presenting pieces that you love and you believe in, and you've rehearsed and gotten, you know, into some subtleties, not only that you can just get through the piece, but you can hopefully make some music with it. So I'm kind of rambling. I don't have a one-word answer for that.
No, you don't need. I guess it's more for you to think about it than to answer. Like for us, actually, to think about it, because a composer and a conductor is like something that dialogues, right? So sometimes you do.
And then the audience too. So you've got this communication from the composer to the performers, to maybe the composer to the score, to the conductor, to the performers, to the audience. And the music has to pass through all of those different entities and convey the meaning that initially was thought of by the composer. But of course, as specific as a composer can be with the notation, it's still very open to interpretation and personality of the conductor and the performers that are presenting. And then even how it's heard from the audience, you know, that can be understood variously depending on, you know, that the audience's background and perspective and attitude.
I'm just thinking, well, I'm going to skip many questions I've done because I'm thinking about anything, something completely different. So for example, when you have to choose repertoire, what's the main idea? I was going to ask you this later, but I think now is the moment. Because what is the main idea? Do you want to instruct the audience or the players? Or because, for example, if you choose something very different, very difficult to play, right? Probably the performers are going to struggle with that, and they might hate that piece for them. But the piece is very important in the 20th century or 21st century, for example. So in this case, what is your value? So do you want them to perform what is important or something that they might like better?
Well, I don't think those are mutually exclusive. Even some of the hardest, most difficult pieces that the ensemble has prepared, they sometimes they just end up being a pain. And yeah, okay, man, that was a lot of work. And other times it will be very rewarding, and I think the group will feel like they've really accomplished something, and have you get to know the piece so well. That's one of the luxuries in excuse me, in running this ensemble at Indiana University. I have a lot of rehearsal time, frankly, compared to the professional realm where there's very little rehearsal time typically. And so that's one thing that makes playing new repertoire very challenging. But in a school, we have the luxury of more rehearsal time, yet these players are at pretty much a professional level, so they can really learn the music. But if I can backtrack to answer your question about programming, I mean, I could go on for a while about that, but I want to present programs that make sense to the audience, therefore there's some balance, and they're not all loud, fast pieces of the same duration. You want some variety. When possible, it's nice to have some connection between the pieces. But having said that, probably most of my programs are not thematically organized necessarily. They're more built around guest composers. I try to bring in a guest composer for every concert. Sorry.
No, right.
But then also I have faculty and many student works to work into the programming. In particular, we commission 2 works from students each year, an undergraduate and a graduate student. This has increased, I think, since you were here. So we do that, and if someone writes a dissertation for New Music Ensemble, I'll program that. And so there are a lot of things that are kind of fixed into the programming already, and then it's usually a matter of finding one or 2 more pieces per program. And sometimes maybe that works out to be a theme. Like I've done some Halloween themed concerts when it works out.
The what?
We usually have a concert very near Halloween. October 30th.
What kind of pieces do you choose for this kind of?
Well, the best one is Frankenstein by H. It's a wonderful piece for baritone and chamber ensemble, or there's an orchestra version as well. I've done that maybe 2 or 3 times, but Robert Patterson was a guest composer, and he had a couple of pieces that fit into that theme very well, and he was on that concert. So once in a while, something like that will work out. I'm looking at our programs for this next season, and I don't really see a lot of that, other than we do have a program in March, which is part of Indiana University's focus on Korea. IU's been focusing on a different culture each spring. So Mexico a couple of years ago, and, India I think was last year, and China. Next spring is Korea. So I've commissioned 2 works from Korean composers who are alumni of IU. They'll be writing pieces for the ensemble and be guest composers. So there's that focus. It's called Korea Remixed, the festival at IU.
Oh, very interesting.
We'll tie into that.
So you don't, you always like promoting younger composers, or are you also promoting colleagues of yours? Like
both. We do commission 2 works from current students each year, and we also bring in at least 1 alumni composer each year. This year, I guess we'll be bringing in 3 because Clint Needham is coming in December. Do you remember Clint?
Who?
Clint Needham. I don't know if he was here when you were there.
I remember the name, but I cannot. The face is not familiar.
Yeah. Yeah, so alumni composers and faculty works. Claude Baker retired last year. He taught here for many years, a distinguished American composer. And he wrote us this big, major piece for an expanded string section with NME. It really is a chamber orchestra piece. And it was to be premiered in April of 2020. Of course, we shut down in March, so that didn't happen. And then last year, we did function as an ensemble, but mainly doing chamber music. So we haven't been able to do Claude's piece until this fall. So on October, we'll present this premiere of his work. So yeah, some faculty works as well. And then repertoire pieces, Ligeti and, Haas and whatever else seems like it would be good to present to the audience and have the students learn and become familiar with these composers.
Well, I remember what was very, very special was this combination. It was very new and old, so we could actually know the repertoire from the 20th century, big standards. Yeah, we could know that, and also we could get to know how the younger or our colleagues were working at that time. I remember it was very special, this kind of dialogue between the kind of old, the recent past, as you wrote in the description of the ensemble. Well, let's just stop a little bit and listen to one of your pieces. Tom? Yeah, we're going to listen to Ha. Is that? Ha.
Ra.
Yeah, it was performed. Well, I found this video. It's great. Like, it's very fun. Performed in 2019 by the Boston Symphony Orchestra with Maestro Thomas Wilkins. Yeah. It's very interesting. Let's just hear that so people can know your work.
Okay.
So they scream in the end.
Yeah, they yell "rah" at the end.
Sure. So what is Ra?
Well, it's not like rah 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 like a cheerleader. It's I'm meaning the Egyptian sun god Ra.
Oh.
So Ra, every day would travel across the sky doing battle with his mortal enemy Apep. And on days that Ra would win, it was going to be sunny, and when he lost, it was going to be rainy. So this piece began as the first movement of 4 in a piece called Sun, Moon, Stars, Rain, which I wrote for the Minnesota Orchestra. It's kind of my 4 seasons piece. So this was the summer movement about sun and these hot flashes of bright color and everything. When it's done alone, just this movement is called Ra. And it's been played quite a bit, both for orchestra and in transcription for wind ensemble.
Mm-hmm. When was it composed? When did you compose this piece?
Originally in 1997, I wrote Sun, Moon, Stars, Rain for the Minnesota Orchestra. And then Ra was first done alone maybe a couple of years later.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe 5 years later, I wrote the version for wind ensemble, which is, it's pretty much the same, except you don't have the string section in a wind ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
So some of those textures needed to be inverted to fit the registers available in the wind ensemble. That they don't have high string harmonics, chords. But there was a fantastic performance with Maestro Thomas Wilkins, who he teaches at IU now. Maybe I don't know if you're
I heard. Uh-huh. Wow, great conductor. I think he's
obviously it wasn't an evening subscription concert with them.
Oh,
But that was a series of school concerts they did that week. So I think 4 days in a row they performed this program.
Uh-huh. Well, but it's a strong piece even for this kind of concerts, right? It's very strong, like even for youth.
Well, it's short and very rhythmic and kind of fun. So the kids liked it a lot, I think, especially with yelling at the end.
No, and the timpani was fantastic. He doesn't stop to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy. Some of it.
Mm-hmm. So this 10 minutes we have still for this part, I'd like to ask you how did you start to conduct? When exactly? Was it like in your grad school, undergrad? Do you remember was the first time you conduct?
I think in high school I might have done something, maybe just once with the school band. I went to a really good performing arts high school in Portland, Oregon. But again, it was focused more on jazz, but we did have wind ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
no, just go on.
Then I started college at the University of Puget Sound in Tacoma, Washington. And I remember one day the band director let whoever wanted to conduct a piece. You could go to the library and find a piece to conduct. So I conducted some band piece with the wind ensemble, and that was fun. Mm-hmm. But it was really when I got to IU, I transferred to IU as a sophomore. And then I started composing more, and that's when I began conducting, performances. And I took, I guess, 2 conducting courses somewhere along the way. I think that was during my master's degree, though. I took kind of introduction to instrumental conducting with Akira Mori. He was an AI in the conducting department there, and he turned out to be a longtime friend. Mm-hmm. In fact, he was an assistant conductor with the Minnesota Orchestra when I worked with him, so we continued that association. It's so important, the relationships you develop at school and at these festivals and everything, because the music world is pretty small, and we encounter people again and again. So then it just kept going from there. And ultimately, my first job was at the University of North Texas, where I taught composition, but also directed the new music ensemble there.
Okay, I thought your first job was direct after your doctorate. So you've done undergrad was in trumpet, was it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then your master's in composition.
I did a master's in both trumpet and composition, doctorate just in composition. And I stayed at IU for all of that. It's just such a great place for a composer, but it's the largest school of music in the country, and you have all these fantastic performers looking for performing opportunities in Bloomington, which is a small college town. So for the composers, this is great because you have all these incredible players. And it just worked out for me to stay. But no, I taught in Texas for a year before coming back to IU on the faculty.
Well, great. You're lucky to go back to IU.
Yeah.
And you're there since you're working since 1992, is it?
Indeed, yes. This will be my 30th year.
Oh my goodness, you can retire already.
I want a gold watch.
Yeah. What?
They should give me a gold watch at the end of the year.
No, but so in your family, did you have anyone who studied music, or how did you get interested in music and in composition? It's like how did you go this way?
My parents were both very supportive of whatever
doesn't matter
to do and my siblings, but my dad in particular was an amateur musician. He played tenor saxophone and clarinet in high school, and then in the army band in Colorado. Loves jazz. I mean, he just loves jazz, and but also orchestra. And they would take us to the Oregon Symphony concerts, but then also some jazz concerts and jazz festivals and whatnot. So, no professional musicians in the family background, but amateur musicians. My dad is an architect, so that has some influence as well. Just because composition is a little bit like architecture and design and planning and building something. So somehow that's simpatico, I think.
So just going back to your conducting career, so let's just talk a little bit about the NME. NME, we say that?
New Music Ensemble.
New Music
Ensemble. I mean, I never changed its name to something more unique.
No, but it's a great name, right? And now everybody knows it. So yeah. So tell us a little bit about the process. How do you do? You told us already about how do you choose repertoire and things, but how do you choose the musicians? What a musician has to have to enter in the NME? What is the quality you see when you do the auditions? What are you looking for?
Sure. Well, I don't audition everybody for the ensemble. The woodwinds and brass are assigned, and percussion are assigned by the performance faculty. Through their auditions for orchestra, and NME is one of the orchestras they might get placed in. My responsibility as far as the auditions is for strings and piano. And so, yeah, mainly strings, really. So I post some excerpts that at the website that people can download and look at, and I want to hear them play those, and then also 2 examples from their own repertoire, preferably, including something from the 20th century at least, if not 21st century. But I'll listen to whatever, just 2 contrasting excerpts, and I try to find the best and best players and the most interested players, because there's some people that have a particular interest and they seek out this opportunity.
So the people who wants to enter in the New Music Ensemble are already interested in new music, or you have to develop some kind of relationship with the repertoire?
It depends, again, because for the woodwinds and brass, they might just get assigned to New Music Ensemble. Now, sometimes they're often people that have a particular interest. So they've told, the flute professor, the trumpet professor, that, hey, can you put me in New Music Ensemble? And then if they do well enough in their audition, they can be placed there. Sometimes I'll make a request of hey, I know so-and-so would like to continue and play another semester or something like that. So there's a little bit of communication, but once in a while, well, every year probably, there's players that get assigned to New Music Ensemble kind of unsuspectingly. They don't know what's in store for them. I mean, almost always they love it, you know, and they enjoy the rapport that we have in the group, and, you know, working on the pieces with other musicians who are very serious about it and doing a good job. It's, you know, it's a smaller group, so there's more personal responsibility than playing in 100-piece symphony orchestra. Multiple, you know, especially for strings, multiple players on a part. So it's quite a different experience, and, you know, maybe in some ways higher expectations, because, you know, you're on your own to really take care of your part. So I think most people, I can only remember a couple of times where someone really wasn't enjoying it, and you know, and they can switch into some other ensemble. But mostly the people that are in the group really love the music and love making the music with their fellow students.
But so basically you choose the repertoire before you have the ensemble.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So then you know exactly what kind of people or kind of players, kind of instruments you need.
Right. Well, and this is back to programming the concerts and choosing repertoire. That's a puzzle for the ensemble. And that's why I do a lot of repertoire that's for close to the full ensemble, you know, 15 to 20 players, somewhere in there. Sometimes we'll do a piece for 5 or 7 players, 10 players, but then it gets very difficult, because, you know, there's flute and clarinet and everything. But, you know, you need to use the oboe and the bassoon and the tuba. You know, some concerts I just don't have anything with tuba, which is not cool with the tuba professor. So yeah, I mean, just because the students that are in there, this is another luxury for me at IU, is the students that are in there are getting ensemble credit for playing in New Music Ensemble. They don't have to play in another ensemble. Some of them do, especially the winds and brass, but the strings, for instance, don't also play in orchestra. Whereas a lot of schools, the contemporary ensemble is more of an extra ad hoc thing, you know, and people are assembled just piece by piece. Okay, we need these instruments in this piece and these instruments. No, this is an ensemble that I'm trying to use everybody in the group as much as possible, because they need to, you know, they're in there to get their ensemble experience. So it's not fair if they're not playing on the concert.
And usually they stay in the ensemble for like years, or it's like just one semester. You have to change.
It depends on the instrument. Like, I just finished a run of years, maybe it might be 4 years, where I had these 2 pianists that they're incredible players, and, you know, very interested, and they wanted to play, and they were the best players as well. For instance, when we had one concert where the piano faculty decided to have the Ligeti piano concerto be one of the concertos for the year, and the New Music Ensemble would be the performing orchestra. And so we had the competition. I think in the end, only 3 pianists learned the concerto to audition. 2 of them were the New Music Ensemble pianists. And we had a distinguished jury of piano faculty, I think 7 or 8 of us. I was on the jury as well. And after the voting, it was a 3-way tie. So we played the piece 3 times on the concert. Each student played through the whole Ligeti piano concerto. It was a really unique. Anyway, I'm getting very sidetracked here. Some players will continue for more than a semester or more than a year, but the woodwinds, for instance, they rotate quite a bit, because the faculty want them. They want to spread that experience around more. So it's. I mean, that's, I guess, the other side of it being in a school. I'm kind of starting with a new ensemble more or less every year, and then we. Kind of starting from scratch, building a sound and learning especially the rhythmic things that we need to do in the ensemble.
do you do some kind of training? For example, I remember there was a class that you used to teach the pre-conductors. I tried to watch your class, but I couldn't. You didn't allow me because I couldn't be enrolled at that time. But I remember you had a few exercises for conductors.
Yeah.
Rhythms and things. Do you teach these things like to the instrumental players? Because the rhythms that you learn in the traditional repertoire are basic, right? When you get to this repertoire, we have some groupings and
except you know what, triplets. People don't play triplets right. I mean, in quarter note triplets or half note triplets, it's it's always dum 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 dum. It's not dum dum dum. So we do a lot of work on rhythm, and sometimes I'll make it an exercise. If we're trying to play some rhythm that happens a bunch of times, maybe I'll have the whole group do it just on their choice of note, or I'll say, okay, in this key we're going to play this chord, and just try to get that rhythm down accurately. We do some singing as well, because a lot of the music is very difficult. So just removing the barrier of playing it on your instrument and just focusing on the rhythm and maybe the contour and dynamics. But mostly when we do that, it's about rhythm.
Yeah, the rhythm is the most difficult thing, I think, in this kind of music. Well, especially, I think notation is also an issue, isn't it? The notation just
yeah, I mean, and the composers, they have to help us out with that, because it's not always a good idea to invent new notation. There's reasons why people have notated things certain ways, and it helps the players know what to do. But yeah, I mean, there's more advanced performance techniques that are called for, with multiphonics or special sounds, or tone qualities that they're not asked to produce in standard repertoire. So yeah, there's a lot of new concepts to negotiate and become comfortable with.
Next piece we're going to listen is Double Black Diamond. I can't remember why I selected, because I listened to a bunch of pieces, incredible pieces. Actually, there was one was like Snake Alley. I listened, just yesterday, but then I already selected. It's an incredible piece. I think you wrote it in '89 or something. It was a student piece? No, it's not.
It was written during my doctoral studies, but it wasn't part of my degree. It was commissioned by the National Repertory Orchestra, a summer orchestra in Colorado that I was playing trumpet in, and the conductor asked me to write a piece. But yeah, that's probably my most performed piece that really kind of got my career started, because it got played by a number of professional orchestras early on.
Well, but today we're going to listen to Double Black Diamond. Actually, you wrote some indeterminate passages. I can't remember where. I think we're going to get
that's during the dream part at the beginning. Yeah.
Yes. It's only at the beginning. Tom?
Oh, is this a scrolling score? Okay.
Super. So can you tell us a little bit about this piece you're conducting? So that's why I wanted to show them. You're conducting the New Music Ensemble in 2007 here in our hall. I miss it. Oh.
Right. Well, first of all, I need a haircut. That's what I'd say about that. But Double Black Diamond was written for the Utah Arts Festival. And so Double Black Diamond refers to the rating for very challenging ski runs, right? You're going down the steep hill. And the part of the piece that we heard there is the first third of the piece, which is kind of where the skier is dreaming about the next day. So you hear these icy sounds and these runs, and that's kind of just images of going down the mountain on skis the next day. Mm-hmm. Then we would get to the middle section. It's kind of a long climb up while you're riding the chairlift up the hill. And then there's a fast final section where you're zooming down the hill, and it's more rhythmic and driving, kind of fun. So that first section has some improvisation. I mean, they're not making up, I guess they're making up notes to some degree, but it's pretty much directed, what to do.
Mm-hmm. You mean the indeterminacy?
Yeah.
Oh, mm-hmm. Yes.
They're asked to play very fast scales in all different keys. Mm-hmm. When you have multiple people doing that, it gets to be kind of an interesting texture.
Mm-hmm. So we already, it's already 7:45, and I didn't get to even the middle of my questions, but it's fine. We're going to talk a little bit about the composer consultant to the Minnesota Orchestra now. Could you tell us, how was this work? You were helping to direct the perfect pitch sessions. What is it about?
It was, it was just a program that the orchestra ran for those 3 years. And it was, now there are many orchestras doing these reading sessions for young composers. I think this was an early one that, I know there were certainly ones before that, but I guess this was the precursor to the more really important Minnesota Composers Institute, which is a reading session with the Minnesota Orchestra, but also a number of other workshops all week long about professional activities and whatnot, and then performances of the pieces. But before that, there was this perfect pitch reading session series, and I was the composer that somehow they hired to help out guiding that, and so I helped design the program and select the pieces, and then I coached the composers.
So is this a common thing in the United States to have like a composer consultant for this project, or was like a particular program?
That was the title they came up with because I wasn't like a composer in residence. I was there, a lot during the year, and there was this program that Meet the Composer began called, the Meet the Composer in Residence, and they provided funding to place composers in residence with major symphony orchestras. And that program went for 10 or 20 years, I think, and then ended, and then it was up to the orchestras whether they wanted to continue that kind of thing. This was a shorter term thing. Maybe I went up to Minneapolis 3 or 4 times a year for the planning and for the event. And I think I also conducted at least one chamber concert with some musicians from the orchestra, part of that. So it was more like, a consultant for a few special projects with the orchestra. And it was a thrill, it was just this fantastic orchestra.
And you were also active as a composer in residence in the Green Bay Symphony. So how does that work? What kind of stuff do you have to do? You have to compose many pieces, work with the musicians. How does that work?
Well, it depends on what the orchestra wants to do with their composer, what their goals are. It starts with having a music director usually that is interested somehow and wants to work on some projects with the composer. For the Green Bay situation, they got funding from Meet the Composer as well for a Music Alive composer in residence, and they had 3 different composers there. So I was there 1 year, and Jennifer Higdon was there 1 year, and somebody else was there another year. And yes, I wrote a piece for them, but that was sort of separate from the program. The program was really to lead a young composer project. And so I mentored some young composers from the area throughout the year. Kind of when I would go visit there maybe once a month, I would work with the composers, give them lessons. And then we had a recital at the end of the year with musicians from the orchestra performing the students' pieces. It was fantastic. I mean, really very touching, actually. I mean, the kids composed some nice music, and then they're hearing it played by these professional musicians. It was really nice.
And engage the community as well, right? When
yes, the kids, I mean, that brings in kids and their parents. And I also went out and did visits to local schools. So I would go out and meet with the band or whatever music class they had going on. And maybe with band, we would do some kind of new music-y improvisations and exercises and kind of have fun.
So you do so many things, like you work with so many projects and things. So how do you manage to compose? How do you have a routine that you compose like during the evenings, and then you practice? You practice conducting for them. Do you have to practice that, or just?
I don't really practice conducting. So I mean, again, we have this generous rehearsal period. So I get a lot of practice. I mean, I'll prepare the score, and I'll think about things, and I'll mark up my score. And maybe some tricky passages I might practice a little bit, but it's more about studying the music and deciding what I want to work on in rehearsal and all of that. Composing, I'm mentioning these projects. We were talking about the residency projects. They took a lot of time, so I took time away from composing during those years. But that hasn't been all 30 years since I've been at IU. So, in the normal academic calendar, of course, you have a lot of time in the summer and these breaks here and there. But during the semester, the ensemble rehearses Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I have to be at school at least those days. I try not to schedule things as much as possible on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so that I can focus on composing on those days. And then you talk about night. Yeah, some composers can work at night. I'm more of a morning composer. I like to kind of work on the music before I've dealt with everything else in life.
And so, how do you get inspired then? How do you choose? How do you feed yourself with imagination, musical sounds and things? How do you do that?
Most of my inspiration comes from working with a specific ensemble or soloist or chamber group, knowing that they're going to perform the piece, that we're aiming towards this premiere. And that's very exciting, to imagine them on stage and what do I want to hear them do? What music do I want to hear them play? I'm rarely just composing a piece, these days anyway, just on spec, sort of on speculation. Like it's very hard, like this flute concerto, I think maybe we'll get to later on. I would probably never write a concerto unless it was for a certain person and we knew it was going to be performed somewhere. Because if you just write, you write a concerto, an opera, or some big piece, and then try to go get it performed, that's going to be very, very difficult.
So, we're going to talk about just a few things before, and then we enter in the flute concerto. So, I was going to say, do you consider yourself a didactic composer? Do you write for the players you have, or you write for your ideas? What is the priority? This is what I mean.
Well, I've written pieces for younger performers, if that's what you mean. You know, some band pieces that were supposed to be in the band world. They have grades, you know, like 1 through 6, and you know, a grade 4 piece might be for a junior high school band or a average high school band. So I've done some of that, but most of the composing I've done has been for, you know, high level professional musicians. Pretty much play whatever you write.
But even so, when you have, for example, some ideas that you have, you know, that's very, very hard. Like you talk to the performer and you say, let's agree on, does it hurt you too much like to play, or is it going to hurt your instrument or something like that? Do you have this kind of negotiation? Or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's very, very useful to have some back and forth with the performers you're writing for. And, you know, because I don't play every instrument, most instruments. So I have a lot of experience writing for them. So I know a lot about what's going to work and what will be more difficult. But then you get surprised by some things, and something unexpected might have a terrific sound that you want to use, or something you thought was going to be easy just is really awkward and is not going to sound right. So find out about those things.
So let's go to a quiz here, quick quiz. So I'll tell a word and you tell me what comes to your mind, okay? So little game. So minimalism.
Steve Wright.
Oh, just that?
Oh,
you have an emotion or something like that? It could be.
Oh, minimalism. I mean, it's become such a standard technique. You know, I think many composers these days use techniques derived from minimalism. Not that they're writing minimalist pieces necessarily. I think a lot of people are attracted to elements of it, you know, the rhythm and the prolonged harmonies and whatnot. But I think, you know, I'm certainly more interested in the direction that John Adams went with minimalism, and, you know, expanding it into a
So jazz.
Sorry?
Jazz.
Jazz?
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned that was how I started as a musician and composer. Really, was writing pieces for jazz ensemble in high school, and it was a big early influence. Gil Evans and Miles Davis and their records, Sketches of Spain and Miles Ahead. My dad, who I said loved jazz, he had these recordings on reel tape, and out at we used to go to this one beach cabin, and we would have those recordings playing all the time, and that was ingrained on my young mind as I began to explore music.
Great. And so quartal harmonies, what does it evoke?
Quartal harmonies, I mean, that also, you know, is just all over jazz, but also the second Viennese school and Stravinsky, you know, and so not to mention Hindemith and whoever, Herbie Hancock. I mean, I love quartal harmonies. Yeah.
You use a lot?
I'm pro quartal harmony. In fact, in the flute concerto, there's a lot of quartal stuff.
Oh, yes, I think that's why I appreciate it. So, fanfare music.
That's a thing, yes. I'm not sure what to say about it. I've written some fanfares. I mean, Ra has some fanfare elements in it, but isn't in itself a fanfare. But you know, I'm a trumpet player, so of course I'm pro fanfare music as well.
So experimentalism.
Experimentalism. Yes, I mean, this is very much a thing of the 60s, and you know, remnants continue. It's like we've gone through so many different periods in close proximity here. And composers today, it's a wonderful time to be a composer and very difficult because there's no common practice. You can do anything. So what do you do? And what do you do in a way that creates your own voice and your own contribution? But I think most composers feel very free to pick and choose techniques from experimentalism to serialism to minimalism and make their own recipe about, okay, some of this and some of this, using these harmonies is my music.
Okay, indeterminacy.
Yeah, I'm pro all of these things. It's kind of like music. I like all kinds of music, and there's good and bad, I think, in all music. But indeterminacy can be very useful. I've used it mainly in kind of background textures when writing for orchestra. I might turn some players loose on some kind of free stuff. Not usually totally free, like make up whatever you want to do. It's more more like the Lutoslawski's approach to control aleatory. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Okay, two more, and I'm going to jump to the last one. So, spectralism.
Yeah, right. Griset and Haas. We had Georg Haas here a couple of years ago. Did a fantastic piece of his for soprano and New Music Ensemble. He really got going on a couple of chords in the middle of the piece where we were kind of swelling back and forth on these chords with the extended partials. We're trying to tune them correctly. And yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful sound. I haven't explored that so much in my own music. I use quarter tones more just as ornamental things here and there.
And the last one, hip hop.
Hip hop. It's not a big part of my musical vocabulary. But again, I have a 22-year-old son and 24-year-old daughter, so I've listened to plenty of hip hop.
So you don't use that in your music?
I don't use that.
Not yet.
I mean, the rhythm, when in high school, I played trumpet in a funk band called Velvet. It used to be Black Velvet until me and the pianist joined, and it was no longer an all black group. But we played Cameo and Earth, Wind and Fire and all this stuff from the 70s more. And I mean, that was very much a part of my early music.
So I guess we have to stop. But I wanted to make just the last question before we go on to the flute concerto. We live in a classical music crisis, kind of. Yeah, it's a kind of period of questioning that we're changing so many things, including what we were talking before, the outreach concerts. This is all kind of new, yeah, something that is necessary nowadays. So have you had any thought about what is sustainable in music? How do we make it sustainable? Even in Europe, like the public is growing older and they're trying to renew it. So have you given any thought on that?
Well, I mean, yes, but we've been worried about the fate of classical music for quite a while now, and I think there are still, so many young people interested in it. We need more. We need the audiences for all these excellent performers that we're making, and a big problem is that music education has been cut so drastically from grade schools and high schools. And that's a big problem with the diversity question, which I don't know if you were touching on that as well, but it's fine. And I'm all for having more diversity in the programming and in the representation in the orchestra membership and all that. But we have to have that begin at the beginning so that there are enough people being trained. There's a diverse pool being trained. So it's a very complex question. But, I think these days I see all this energy from young musicians and composers organizing their own ensembles and concert series, and I'm very lucky to have this position at IU, and which has been the center of my musical life, and provides great stability. It's more difficult to piece together kind of an ad hoc existence, but I see a lot of people doing it successfully. And so I think we have to continue to find new avenues and new means of expression and support and all of that.
But are you optimistic?
I try to be. I try. It's a tough time we're living in with this virus and political situation. At my heart, I'm an optimist and believe that ultimately more people will make the right decisions and keep us afloat. I hope so.
So let's just finish with the beginning of the first movement of the flute concerto called Flow. It was written to Alejandro Esquer, it's like that, and it was conducted actually by the Cuban conductor Ivan del Prado. Is this? Yeah, I saw somewhere it was like Sarah Hikes was conducting, and then I don't know if she conducted that too, but this recording in particular is with Ivan del Prado. So.
Yeah, he was a replacement conductor for the concert, kind of at the well, I'm not sure how far out, a month or two.
Fantastic. Okay, Tom? Well, unfortunately, we don't have a video. We just have the SoundCloud, but we can just listen, just because it's incredible. This beginning is just incredible. Oh no, Tom. This is the other. We are not playing this one. Yes, thank you. it's interesting how you integrate this extended techniques in some sort of, it seems like melodic almost, yeah, almost melodic. It's like it seems you listen to this music and you don't even, you don't see that it's there, it's not made for you to listen to the extended technique. You listen to the music. This is my impression, at least.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm glad it sounds convincing and natural. A lot of that is Alejandro doing it so well. And this is, what I was talking about with the students in the ensemble needing to learn how to make these unusual sounds in a convincing way. Often a flute player, when they first try, a tongue ram or, this airy sound just doesn't produce enough sound. But here he is in this orchestra hall, and we can hear him fine, doing this. And usually when he's doing a special technique like that, I pretty much have the orchestra not playing so we can hear it. So you have to plan for that. You can't have a big chord in the orchestra while the flute's doing that. But take them out, and then we can hear the flute do something like that, and it's nice. But yeah, the pitches are carefully chosen, and they are melodic, thematic.
So can you just tell us a little bit about, this was the last piece was performed before the pandemic, wasn't it? Like November 2019, I think. Everything closed in March, so I don't know.
Yes, this was I had this and this other piece for soprano and orchestra premiered in October and November of 2019. And everything shut down pretty much, So I was very thankful to Alejandro for bringing this project to me. This was, a collaboration that he invited me to write this concerto for this program. And he learned it very quickly, because I only wrote it in August that year, ahead of a early November premiere. So I was sending him, you were talking about, you check things out, and we went back and forth a lot in the writing of it. I was sending him passages, and he would say, no, that's not going to work, or what about this? And I included some improvisation in it as well. There are two cadenzas, one in the middle of the first movement and one before the second movement, that he totally improvised at the concert.
So how long are the cadenzas?
The first one is maybe 45 seconds to a minute, and then the longer one is before the slow second movement. He took 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, they're short anyway. So just.
Well, I mean, in an 18-minute piece, that's 3 or 4 minutes of improvising. So that's a healthy proportion.
So I guess we have to stop because we're already out of time, like a long time ago. I had so many questions, I wrote maybe 40 or more questions to you. So, but I guess.
Well, you can use them for another composer.
What?
You can use them for another composer, another guest.
No, it doesn't work. Well, some of them work, but most of them were like exactly for you,
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to prepare the questions. And listening to some of my music, and I hope I can come to Brazil sometime.
Oh, me too. Yeah,
something in person.
That would be great. Well, who knows? Next year we're still going to be walking very slowly with the orchestra, but let's think about it. So I guess I have to thank you so much for being with us here. This was the first program that we are trying to have people coming every Wednesday to talk to us, or going to give lectures. The musicians of the orchestra are going to also prepare some interviews. So this is going to be a working group. And you were the first one. So I'm very glad that we had a special guest to open this kind of experimental project. Yeah, we're going to see everyone.
Completely my pleasure, Cinthia, and thank you for the invitation. And I wish you and the orchestra all the best for navigating these difficult times and getting back to a healthy, more normal environment as soon as we can.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope this year at least with chamber music, as you did last year. Well, so I'm going to just switch a little bit to Portuguese so we can finish and say goodnight to everyone. Pessoal, então, boa noite para todo mundo. Muito obrigada a quem esteve conosco e quem vai nos assistir nos próximos dias, né? Eu espero que vocês tenham gostado desse bate-papo. O David Dzubay é um super compositor. Nós vamos deixar os links das peças dele no website do David. Tem todas as partituras, quem quiser pesquisar. A música é incrível, né? Música muito natural, muito... nos ouvidos, né? Então, vamos deixar os links no nosso YouTube para vocês consultarem. Na próxima quarta-feira, nós temos a violinista Ivenise Nechepurenko, que vai conversar com o violinista e professor Adoniran Reis. Não deixe de curtir a nossa página, assim você também recebe toda a nossa programação. Toda semana estaremos às quartas-feiras com entrevistas, palestras e também concertos mais para frente, tá bom? So, uma boa noite para todo mundo. David, thank you very much once more, and I hope you have a good night. I hope you still have time to get a beer somewhere, if this is possible right now. Okay.
Very likely. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Então, I think you have to...
Gente, o YouTube